Talk into your microphones, please.
Yes.
What? Oh, yeah.
For Hickory.
Thank you for that. His name?
Sean Mullaney. Mullaney.
No, actually, I looked up his address because I don't know where I found it. I didn't have a name, but I looked up the address and found the name of the people who live there because he has a wife with a different name.
Freya.
Yeah,
Freya's
she has
last
it,
name, yeah.
but it's not his.
Freya.
Freya.
Well, it's 7. I'm going to call the meeting to order. The March 21st, 2023 meeting of the White Bear Lake Conservation District. We have a quorum. That's item 1. We're called to order. That's item 2. Item 3 is approval of agenda. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to make to the agenda? Do we want to bring up the canoe kayak thing?
That's on here.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's under ordinance review clarifications. You might want to just put it up.
Item 7.
Thank you.
4955 Lake Avenue. You may want to put that on there.
Oh. Add 4955 Lake Avenue to the LUC or old business? Business, okay. $49.55, is that what it is, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, any other adjustments to the agenda? Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any discussion?
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, we have an agenda. Approval of the February minutes. Does anybody have any adjustments that they would like to make to those minutes? To make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the February minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes. Public comments. Each meeting we set aside 15 minutes for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. Anybody here that would like to take advantage of that time? Okay, move on. New business, committee assignments. So here they are. The LUC, Mark Gans will be the chair, Chris Churchill, vice chair, Darren DeYoung, Luke Machad, Scott Bonin, and Alexander Schwartz will be the other members of that committee. The Lake Quality Committee, Mike Pronto will be the chair, and Diane Longbill will be on that committee. And then the Lake Education Committee, Scott Costello will be the chair of that committee, and Meredith Wahlberg and Susie Mahoney will be on that committee. Okay. DNR, Commercial Bay Marina summary. The DNR has asked us to communicate with them, I guess, keep them better informed of the ordinance or the permits that we're issuing in Commercial Bay so that they're aware of what's going on with us. So we sent them a letter. It's in your packet, basically summarizing the Commercial Bay permit information for the last few years, 2020 to 2022. Any questions on that letter? Okay. We'll move on. Unfinished business. Approval of the annual designations. Everybody has in your packet the one-pager that has the designations, annual designations on it. Sherry, is there anything you want to add to this discussion?
I will just say typically boards will put down things that happen every year, something that you might have a contract with, or just to let you know that this is an ongoing thing, to let everybody on the board know, not just the officers, you know, the business of what's taking place. So it's right here, information about who we use for various things. You know, the newspapers, our official newspaper, the White Bear Press, et cetera. So just keeps everybody informed on the board.
So I'll make a motion to approve these annual designations. Second. A motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that's done. Proposed permit application form update, Form 5. Mark?
This is the permit form.
This is the Form 5, and I apologize, I was not at the meeting, but as far as I know, everything looked good, and the LUC approved it.
The update.
It's on fees and possibly with what we decide on kayaks that will have to change, but the form got cleaned up quite a bit. Looks good.
Also, a discussion came up in our meeting tonight. You know, we have this canoes and kayaks, racks onshore, offshore. Gets kind of gummy. It's only $7 anyways. It's not like we're using it as income. And it's the LUC's recommendation to just completely remove the canoes and kayak racks unless you're commercial. And you're actually like renting a kayak out for like Tallies will rent a kayak out for $50 a day. That you should have to be charged for. But if the city of Matamidi or the city of White Bear Lake wants to have some canoe racks in Lions Park, they're not polluting the lake. They're not creating any noise or any other kind of problems. So it was the LUC's thought that instead of looking at something that's difficult to enforce, hard to enforce, and we really don't make income on, is just to remove it altogether.
So will we table this item tonight, and will the form get updated and bring that back to the
I
next
think we do
meeting?
that. I think that's the best way to handle it.
Okay.
Because no one's going to put a kayak out there in the next 4 weeks.
Right. Yeah, I think we're ahead of the curve, at least.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an
It'd be nice.
ordinances at all, so.
Yeah, it's not an ordinance. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on that item?
I'll just elaborate quickly on the updating of Form 5 is that it was separated into a commercial and a non-commercial. So it's now 2 applications, or that's the proposed setup. So commercial application, non-commercial application. That's the best way to keep it clean. And based on what Mark just said about the kayaks, if we charge for one, don't charge for the other. It's pretty clean. So Sherry did that. She did a great job. It's kind of the best way to do it. And yeah, it's pretty much just, do we really need to know their fax number and their work phone? Cleaning up stuff like that. Just making it a little easier for the user to fill out and complete. And I know we talked about eventually getting that online, but we'll work on the paper copy first. So that's all I have on that.
Okay, any other comments on that Form 5 item? Moving on.
Comment on the kayak thing. So I understand it would be hard to enforce and everything, but I do think maybe it's important for us to know how many of those non-motorized watercraft are being used regularly on the lake for our next lake use survey. So I wonder if we could just have like a somewhere where they can note how many they have approximately, not charge them for them, but just so we know for policing and things like that and lake use, what is the approximate number that are stored on the lake shore?
I'm not against that at all. I will say, however, I live right next to Matamidi City Beach, and there's a public access there, and all of my neighbors just carry theirs down. So,
Yeah, and I would agree with Meredith. I think that having that information, and the way I see it could be valuable, is just spot trends. If somebody, we have 20, and the next year they apply and they have 80, that might be something we want to know about.
Well, I mean, you could measure or just the rack space,
Yep.
Let's say their rack
talk
spaces go
about
up.
actual,
We don't have
whether
authority
they're
on the
there
rack
or not, or
spaces.
people are all.
Yeah, we certainly don't have authority over it, but when I read our last lake use study that we did, they did count non-motorized watercraft, and they took it into account for the recommendations on policing and enforcement on the lake. So maybe we should just get a vague idea every few years of what is out there.
yeah, maybe we could just go to this. It's basically the municipalities that we're talking about here, and maybe we just go to each one and say, how many canoe racks and where are they at?
Yeah, and we
Are they at
could,
Mataska, or how many are there? How many are at Lions?
yeah, and we could do that, and alternatively, we could just ask them to note that on their form, on the form. But anyway, I guess that'll be a discussion that we'll have when the modified form comes before the board.
Do you want me to put that on there? Just see if I can fit it on there somewhere to see what it looks like, or?
I personally, I think that's a good idea, but
Or use that same area of the fees at the bottom and just say, approximate number,
Okay.
not charging more for reference or
Right.
whatever you want to put.
We'll look at the form and see how we can do that.
all right, thanks for that. Any other Form 5 items? Move on, and that'll be on the future agenda. Next item is ordinance review clarifications. Mark?
Remind me.
I forget what ordinance we changed.
Did we change an ordinance?
It's an item on the agenda.
Kayak
That was
discussion.
for the
Star
kayaks?
Trek.
For the kayaks.
Oh, okay, so maybe we're through with that? All right.
Thank you. That's like, well, no. Like that.
The next item is reports, action items, executive committee. The executive committee didn't meet, so there's no report there. Oh, yeah, sorry, thank you. So we'll go back, I forgot, the 4955 Lake Avenue under unfinished business. So can we address that?
Yep. So we followed up with another letter and left it at the door. And Gary's brother, Mark, got back to us. So Gary's not there. Mark informed us that he had cleaned up as much of the dock that was in the water. So I'll follow up with him just to make sure that he understands like anything that's in the water. If it's even when springtime comes, he'll have to clean that up. But I'll get with Mark and make sure he understands that. So, but we did finally find somebody. So it took us a little bit, but we found somebody.
Any questions about that item? Right. Okay, and I'll just say thanks for all the effort to get through and
team.
share. Yeah. Okay, so now we're on to reports and action items. No executive committee meeting, no report. Lake Quality Committee, no report. Mike is not here tonight. And so we're on to Lake Utilization Committee. Mark?
First is White Bear Yacht Club, their sailboat calendar, our regatta calendar. We have a representative here if there's any questions. The Utilization Committee approved, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the White Bear Yacht Club application. Any discussion?
I'll just add that we confirmed that they did work with Black Bear Yacht, so they're not having regattas at the same time, and we have no permit from Black Bear Yacht yet.
Okay. Are you reaching out to them again?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Sherry.
I have several times.
Okay, so again, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes.
Next on the agenda, Mr. Chair, is Tallies, Dockside. We sent them a letter back. They sent back an application, and it appears that they are within the guidelines we gave them on the new drawing. So the LUC approved, and I so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
And then Docks of White Bear Lake application status update. We have a representative here for Docks. Basically, we're going to wait. Definitely have to go back to 300 feet in distance from ordinary high water. We are going to do a survey. We're going to mark the corners in the water as well as on the shoreline.
Okay, thank you. Next is the Lake Education Committee. Scott?
Yeah, a few things. We had March 11th was the date of the lake cleanup. It kind of fell apart. Like right around the time that the ice houses had to be off, the overnight ice houses, we got 2 snowstorms covering all of the stuff. And the Boy Scouts were conflicted as to what to do about it. Some units wanted to go ahead, and others didn't want to do it at all. So what they did was sort of make it go out and clean whenever you can. And that's where it was sort of left. I'm hoping that some of the units will report back to Jim Schuster, who runs it, and we'll have some sort of report about how much was collected. It wasn't a very good winter in general for the ice surface, so I'm thinking it might not, and of course it was all hidden. So that's that. Couple other things. I will be attending a Rice Creek Watershed District workshop tomorrow from 3 to 7. Mike Peranto attended the first one, which is in February, and he updated me on that. There's all kinds of different stakeholders involved, and they were organized in different tables, and they came up with a list of what the current issues are. You know, for example, a lot of them were connected with climate change and how that affects flooding and pollution and all kinds of things. And I'll have to see what tomorrow brings. But it's a 4-hour event with light hors d'oeuvres served from 3 to 7. And the final thing is we've been talking about doing an educational outreach to the lake owners or lakeshore property owners around the lake. You know, it would cover things like the invasive irises and give an update on Phragmites and what we're watching out for, which would be like the starry stonewort and some other things. And we had Sherry and Meredith and myself, we had a very good meeting with the White Bear Press, or Press Publications, as to what options we could do for that communication. There are basically 2 two approaches. One is they could actually publish a special thing. I don't know if you go out to like rural areas where there's lake associations, and you can get like, this is the resorter. They publish something in Polk County called the Laker, and they go out and they get advertisements, and then they give the lake associations a big, chunk of that. And I suppose, and that could be distributed locally. They would take care of all of that. And we could also then mail it to, the lakeshore homeowners. But it would take a while to put that together. Like right now they've got a summer fun insert that's going to be coming out, actually in the press, be summer fun, and that's already, closed off for content and advertising. So it would be kind of late in the summer if we did that, unless we could really get organized fast. The other option is to send a pamphlet or flyer, very similar to what we did in 2015. You may remember the 2015 zebra mussel brochure that went to all, and that involved getting mailing labels from the two counties, and sending that out. Plus, we distributed them in a library and at the bait shops. And this in 2015 cost about $1,400 for, it was $800 for the, glossy color printing. And there was postage cost less than $300, and then cost of getting the labels from the two counties. And that would be a little bit faster, I think. We are working on, Sherry's working on assembling addresses. We still have the addresses from Washington County. They sent a PDF in 2015. And we can take the addresses off of that. And we don't really need the names so much. We could send them to Lakeshore resident then the same addresses. Ramsey County actually gave us physical mailing labels, so we don't have that. We could either get it from them again, or we could just open up Google Maps and start typing in addresses going around the lake, which would be reasonable. So what we need to do is get the education committee together and try to figure out what the content should be of this thing. In addition to the invasive species stuff, it might be nice to have a summary of certain ordinances that affect, like explain what an ADUA is, and how they can use that space. So there could be a number of things that could be discussed. Now in 1999 we put together a pamphlet. This is way before my time, maybe before, I don't know if anyone was here in 1999. We put out a brochure that had a big lake map in it. You might have seen that, right? And, it has all the bays marked, and, some of the ordinances, and a big 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. So we could, and there have been requests in the past to just, can we republish that, update it? But we don't have the source of it. And we don't know who did it. This 24 years ago. So these are the options that we're looking at. But I would imagine that we would probably want to spend, a couple $1,000s on this particular project. And I'm not sure how that fits exactly in our budget, but I would think that next month, if we can get organized, we might have some better idea of how much this would cost and get the board's approval.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And the last item is social media. We'll hand it over to Meredith.
All right. My plans for social media this month are to talk about the board, our meetings, and also mention that there's an open seat on the board for the city of Delwood to see if anyone is interested in filling that seat. I found a really neat watershed map in an old Steve McComas report that I'm going to put up because I found it very interesting, and I think others will as well. Maybe an ice outpost, we'll see, and something on Earth Day.
Okay. Any questions for Scott and Meredith?
I'll just add on, if you guys are looking for content, obviously we had the suggestion of asking for storage racks. Maybe you can throw a survey in your mailer or whatever that distribution method is to the homeowners in the community, asking them how they use the lake. And so you don't have to, but if you're looking for content, just another thing.
And I see your hand, sir, but the public comment time's over. You didn't take advantage of that, and there wasn't anything else on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, my name is Nathan Hansen. I'm here for Docks of White Bear Lake. Public comment time was said to be for items not on the agenda.
Right.
Docks of White Bear Lake was on the agenda.
Right.
You know that I was here to be heard for that on the agenda, so I would like to be heard to the entire conservation district, at least for just 3-4 minutes on the issue of the permit application.
Yeah, I think that'd be more appropriate when the revised permit comes out, sir.
I would like to be heard today.
Well, that opportunity isn't available right now.
You're denying me the opportunity to be heard on that issue?
The issue, Docks of White Bear was an application status update, and we're still waiting on the updated application.
And I'm the attorney for the Docks of White Bear Lake, and I'm here in that capacity. I was at the LUC meeting, and I wanted to participate in the update of the board about that application.
Yeah, and do you have a date when the application will be submitted?
You should have let me talk. Then I can talk about that.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to do. I want to talk about these various issues.
Okay. Well, maybe we can get you on the next meeting's agenda, sir. Okay, so we're going to move on with our agenda. Treasurer's report, Diane.
Treasurer's report for March 2023. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Mike.
Oh, you. Approve the debit card number 5 and checks 4826 through 4831.
Second. I'll second that. We have motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
I had one thing. Is that $60 check for Hickory? Is that the one we were looking for? Or is that a different fee? Different fee.
That's the application fee. I'm looking for a unit fee.
Got it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Board council report, Alan?
Thank you, Chair and Board. Briefly, I think I submitted something to everyone on the board relative to the divers weekend event, I guess. That would be, if you recall, we didn't know we needed a permit group. Rather than write the letter that we had talked about last month, I thought I'd use the old-fashioned thing called a phone and talk to the president just in case. Sometimes you can come off a little hard in a letter, and I didn't want to basically make us I didn't want us to come across that way, so I just called Mark, the guy who's in charge of it and the president of the local group, and probably would have been faster for me to actually write a letter. But we had a really nice long conversation about what they do, where they go, how far and wide the group was that came here for the event, and the fact that they loved it. So obviously, as most of you know, it's the first time they've done it here. They've done it in a few other lakes in Minnesota, and I think we've got a lake in Anoka that they're considering, or at least Anoka's pushing them hard to consider for next year. But if they don't hear everything they want to hear, they might be back here next year. I made it very clear to him, not that I had to, because he was very apologetic for not getting an application to us, but I said, I can understand. You went to the sheriffs, and they didn't direct you to us, so I said no harm, no foul this time, but they're very well aware that they would have to apply for next year's event. So what I did learn, too, is that it's quite a robust group in terms of activities, so they're always looking for something fun to do. And if you read my email, they would be willing to come in the summertime and send the divers down and do some lake bottom cleanup. So that's one of their fun little activities that they do, and I think it'd be very interesting, just as a data point, to see what an afternoon of professional divers with net bags would actually bring up from the bottom, just to really see how clean the lake is from the perspective of where it matters. So,
yeah, there'd be some great publicity, I think.
Absolutely. It's a photo op.
Get that,
it's a chance for all of us to go out in the pontoons with our caps or whatever, and they just put out the little diving buoys, and so it's very safe, and they know what they're doing. So he said they'd love the opportunity.
How many people do they have at this event?
I didn't really ask the number. If you're really curious, I can bring that back. I can call them back. I don't know.
Because I don't think it's required unless you have 50 people. Isn't that what our ordinance say?
I think so. For a group event like that, I'd be surprised if they had 50. It was a pretty cold weekend. I mean, I watched the coverage on the news when they were setting up, and it didn't look like it was a stadium's worth of people. But
I think people were coming and going all day. I know somebody who I found out afterwards does that, and he's a free diver too, so he wants to get it set up for a free dive in that 80-foot spot.
Cool.
For them as well. But he apologized to me. I'm like, you don't have to apologize. You didn't know. The sheriff was, I said the same thing, was supposed to, and he's like, yeah, he was very unnerved when he found out.
Yeah.
And he apologized to me and said, we won't let that happen again. And he said the same thing about Anoka. He lives in Grant. He's like, I'd rather be here because it's 3 miles from my house. But
and for all those snowbirds out there, the people from Florida were saying how nice the water was. But when it's 10 below, all of a sudden 32-degree water feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, in other news, we will have Mike from Ramsey County here next month. I worked that out with Sherry, so we didn't have to muddy the waters this month with him. So I expect to have a little presentation from them. If I didn't cover it last month, they are willing to do that extra patrol that we talked about for Commercial Bay and just to send people around, dock counts, boat counts, that sort of thing. So I think a little extra patrol would sort of enhance what we do because none of us are policing that really regularly in the summertime. And they have the ability to write those little things that, coupons to go to court. We don't. So we can just make the observations, and then we have to secondarily send out the sheriff. So I would guess that if someone wanted to go out with them on any of those patrols, we can talk about that next month. So if I forget to bring it up and someone's got interest, make sure you bring it up. So I've been out with the DNR guys, but I've never been out on the sheriff's boats. So I know at least one agency will do it with us onesie, twosie. It wouldn't be a party barge, but it's interesting when you see life from a police car versus being in front of the police car. So it's kind of a fun view. Anyway, I would stand for any other questions.
Any questions for Alan?
And sorry, I don't have a cold. It's just been a long 24 hours.
Okay, thank you, Alan.
All right.
Announcements. Sherry, do you have any announcements?
I just want to say that we're going to be reviewing the 2021 audit report. The next meeting, it was delayed until the next time. We'll have a presentation by the accountant with that. And the next meeting will be on April 18th.
Does anybody else have any announcements?
I have one question I think would be appropriate is, Sherry, we approved the surveying. Do you know when that's going to take place? I know the results are expected in April, but did the company provide any information as to when they're going to do that?
So they are supposed to give us results by April 1st, okay. But do remember that with the snow and everything else, they haven't got back to us on that. So tomorrow I am going to give them a call to see where they are on that.
Okay.
Okay, and item 12, adjournment. Would anybody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
And just